What's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing an incredible transformation and you're not going to want to miss this one. So let's go. Alright guys, what's up? I am so excited to do today's transformation. This is actually my friend Caitlin who is coming in, and it has been over 12 years since she has done her hair color. And so today we are going to be giving her a full-on transformation. Now, one of the things that I'm most excited about doing Caitlin's hair is she has virgin hair. So this is going to be such a fun transformation. We are going to be giving her a balayage, but we're going to be brightening up her ends. And I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to do a full transformation in one appointment. We're literally taking her from brunette to blonde in one appointment and not damaging her hair in the process. All right, so this is our before. As you guys can see, we have virgin hair here, which is so exciting, but she's got some deeper tones in here. You know, we're definitely at like a level 6. And one thing that's gonna be really fun is just to really bring out her natural dimension. And we're definitely gonna be working with her warm tones. You guys can see her natural color is definitely more on the warm side. So even when we talked through our consultation, we're gonna be bringing out some of those warm tones while obviously not making it brassy, but just really enhancing what she has going on. So one of the other things you're gonna notice is she has bangs. So as we go in and put the lightness around her face, I'm gonna be walking you guys through how to do this on bangs because I know that that can sometimes be a little bit tricky. All right, so we are gonna be mixing up and I'm gonna be doing our blonde door, and I'm gonna start with 25 volume and then we're gonna progress up to probably 30, 35 volume. She's got a lot of hair, so I'd rather start with a lower volume developer so that we have time to really work on her hair and not over process anything. But we also will be starting in the bottom, so if we do need to pull some of those foils early, we can do that as well. And one thing I will mention is normally I'd probably start with 20 volume, but I am using Olaplex, which sometimes slows down the developer, so we're going to start with 25 with Olaplex just to get started. Okay, so before we get started, I'm actually going to be using a blending agent to help blur our line with the balayage, and this is my current favorite blending agent that I have been using. This is the Balayage Raw Color Care Aesthetic Milk Rinse. I love it. You can get it at Cosmoprof, Salon Centric, anywhere that sells Balayage products, but we're going to be using this as our blending agent. I'm going to show you guys how we use it. Okay, so for her sectioning, I just sectioned out the front and then the back, and we're gonna be obviously working here in this back section first. Now I am gonna actually leave quite a bit of depth back in here because one of the things that you might notice when you are doing a balayage or a foilayage is if we lighten all of this, then there's no dimension. And what happens is you can get really light and we can put a ton of lightness in here, but the lightness actually doesn't look as light because there's no depth to contrast it against. So we are going to be leaving a little bit of this dimension in here, but one of the things that I really want to do is I really want to brighten up a lot of these ends because she does want to feel a lot blonder, and we want to make sure that we're doing that as well. So that's going to be kind of how we're tackling this back section. I'm going to start here in our foilayage technique. So I'm going to do a diagonal back. And she does wear her hair up a lot. So this is something that I take into consideration of around her hairline. I want to make sure that we're still seeing that lightness just around her hairline. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch wide section. And we're going to weave this out here. And you guys are going to notice she has that hair type that is, there's a lot of it, it's super straight, it's very staticky, and it's very smooth. So as we go to tease this, you actually might see that we come up against a problem where we're not going to get a ton of tease. You're going to also see this in like Asian hair types and just certain people's textures. My hair actually does this as well, where it sometimes doesn't tease well. So it's actually teasing pretty good for us. But that is something where you actually might need a special tool to help you tease it. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to use. So I actually have this board. It's called the Coup board. There's a couple different versions of this out there. This is one that they sent me to try out. But now that we've teased her hair, sometimes you guys will know like the teasing, especially in this kind of hair texture, will start to fall back down and it starts to get into the area of where your lightening. So sometimes on this hair texture, you're gonna see that it actually doesn't hold the tease very well, or the tease starts to slowly slip back down into your section that you're painting on. So what you can do is you could use a board like this, and this literally has little teeth in it to kind of hold that tease back up. So this is gonna be something that's super helpful. This could be used for balayage, but we're actually gonna be using it with a foil. So I'm gonna take my foil here, I'm gonna pop this in, and now I'm gonna go in with my blending agent right here, just kind of at the root, to kind of help hold that hair down. So this is something that I do in all of my foilayage techniques. You guys might have seen it in some of my other videos, but one of the reasons why I like this is not only is it gonna help me with blending this in, but now you can see it just held down all of that hair. So now it's a lot easier to work with. So now we're gonna go in with our lightener, and one of the things that you really wanna be careful of with using a board like this is you wanna make sure that you are fully saturating it. So you guys are gonna see me kind of making sure to open up the hair, making sure that it is getting saturated, because sometimes if you're doing too thick of a section, it will not saturate well and it'll be a problem. You'll have like holes and spots in there, which obviously is going to not lead to the best result. So sometimes using a board like this also on this section can be a little tricky. So I just wanted to mention that if you're feeling like this is a little awkward or uncomfortable, usually this section is one of the most awkward sections, and unfortunately it's the first one that you start with. So just know that it's sometimes a little awkward for me. If you're feeling that too, that's normal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just kind of blending this up into our little section here. And one of the goals with her is we actually want to avoid having to do a root shadow. She wants it to be super low maintenance. So we might do some sort of a root smudge, but I really want to avoid having to do that. So that's our goal today. We'll see what we get, with our whole process. But now I'm just going to pop another foil right on top of this. We'll remove our board down here. Put a foil right in there. I'm going to fold up this bottom section just to keep it nice and clean. And I like to just fold over that corner. So this is our very first section. We still are gonna get that lightness. I'm gonna do one more section just like this, right above it, and we'll keep going up from there. All right, so we've done our two back to back. I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, this is just gonna be kind of our face framing, but here on the back, the hairline pieces. So we'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll show you guys what we're gonna do from there. Okay, so I did my two back to back pieces that I showed you guys, and then what I did, you might see these extra little foils over here. I actually took the hair that was left out in between these two foils, so our very bottom section and the middle section, and I pulled them together and I actually just put them into a quick little foil, kind of tipped out those ends here, so that we're still getting that brightness, especially down through this bottom section here. So just wanted to mention that I did add in those little pieces in between the foils. So now what we're gonna do is we have our V. You can kind of see our section here. It's like a V just around the hairline. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go straight across. And if you've seen any of my other foiling videos or foilayage videos, this is the traditional sectioning that I do. And sometimes I go really tight in there and I keep a lot of I keep a lot of hair just in this section. But you're gonna notice, I'm actually gonna take a really big section here because I do wanna maintain some of this depth. So we've got this big section. I'm gonna do a foilayage piece right here, but I'm actually gonna clip this up out of the way real quick. And I'm going to work on getting in just these ends because I do wanna brighten up these ends. Because if we just left this here, now we have this big chunk of dark, but I do wanna tip out some of these ends. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna take this entire section, I'm going to weave it like a chunky weave right here. So we still have some depth that's being left out. And I'm gonna do a really heavy tease. So I'm starting from the very bottom. Sometimes you'll see me tease kind of just going from here and just getting that root area, but I'm literally starting from the bottom here. And I'm just gonna kind of push, 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 just kind of teasing it. So we're really getting that diffusion of what we're doing. And because I'm just barely doing the ends, I'm not doing close up, I don't need to use my board here, but you can, again, what works best for you. We're gonna go in with our blending agent just right there. And again, one of the reasons why I love the blending agent, I can take my hands away and it stays there for me. So that's something that's a big deal to me. It gives me a lot more control. And especially for those of you who are starting out and feeling like, oh man, I feel like I'm all over the place or I don't have a lot of control, try out this method because it does make your life just even that much easier on something as simple as that. So I'm gonna go through, I'm just gonna kind of blend this up in here, kind of just stagger it. And you might be wondering, these beautiful foils, where are they from? They are from Framar. This is their holiday collection for the 2020 year. Aren't they so fun? I love just the gold and silver. When I saw those, I was like, I need those. So if you guys want to check those out, any of the tools that I use, I typically link in the description below, down in my Amazon favorites, so you guys can check those out there. Just gonna put this foil right here on top, the corner. So now we've got our foliage piece that I'm gonna pull down. And this one is gonna be a lot closer to that root. So I'm still going to leave it out. We'll let this drop. This will be our dimension, remember that. And then I'm gonna go through in here. And I still am getting the teas pretty deep from the bottom, right? Foil right in there. We lock it into place. You guys can see I'm pushing that teasing up with this board. Getting my blending agent right there. That's now holding it in place. Go with our lightener. Now, one thing I do want to mention, you guys can see that this is a thicker section and she does have a lot of hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread open this hair. You guys can kind of see if we get a little closer there. I'm spreading open that hair to make sure that there's no hollow pieces or anything that's left out. And I do that a lot. I do it really quickly, so sometimes you might not notice that, but I did want to show you guys that I do kind of sometimes just spread open the hair with the brush to make sure you can see that like we're fully saturating, because that is a big thing. And if for some reason you're having spottiness in your lightener or your balayage, or not in your lightener, in your balayage or in your highlights even, a lot of times it's because there's not good enough saturation. So really keep that in mind, that we want to be fully saturating. It makes a huge difference. All right, so now that we've done our straight across, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work up the back of her head. I'm going to do some diagonal backs. I'll probably do 2, and then we'll do a straight across. And so I'm just going to keep working up through this section. But one thing I do want to mention is in between these foils, as I do my diagonal backs, we're going to do our foliage pieces, and I am going to continue to kind of tip out those ends in between because we do want a lot of that brightness in there. So just wanted to mention that I will be doing that, and I'm not necessarily going to be leaving out a lot of these ends, but we will leave out some for some dimension. All right, so we've worked our way up. I kind of did some diagonal back, straight across, diagonal back, straight across, and I kind of just worked my way all the way up through there. And one thing that I will mention is I did typically do where I'm just tipping out the ends, and then I would do more of a closer to the root foliage piece for each section. And so that way we're getting some variance here while still keeping a lot of that dimension. So now we've gotten up here, we've gotten to this little tiny triangle here at the top of the head. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to kind of take this section, we will do one last foliage piece here. We're gonna clip this away, put that away. And I'm going to weave out this triangle piece here. And I'm gonna do, just tip out the ends, kind of how I have been doing. So this will still act as our dimension all the way down through like a low light. And we're gonna just do the ends here. And then I'm gonna go through with these last 2 pieces and do our foliage. Okay, so now we've gotten to the front of her head, and obviously, like I said, she has some pretty thick bangs. And so I know sometimes this can be a little tricky of like, how do we balayage the bangs? Do we leave them out? Do we not? What do we do here? So one of the things that you notice with her hair, she actually does have a little bit of natural highlights just from the sun, but obviously we want to enhance that. And one thing with her, we did talk through this with her consultation, is we don't want to leave the bangs completely out and start her lightener down here or have it be lower, because she does want this to last a little bit longer. So we are going to include the bangs into our balayage section. So one thing you will see is, again, her bangs are thicker. This would be more for side swept bangs. This could also potentially work for just straight across bangs. And then if they were a little bit longer, then we would do our traditional foilayage method. But because hers are definitely more side swept on the forehead type of bangs, that's gonna be how we're doing it right now. So what I'm gonna do is I do wanna make sure that we do have a little tiny bit of lightness just internally. Obviously, we're more so working with the surface of her bangs just because they are so thick, that we don't need to go in and do a ton of lightness in here, but I also don't want it to be like dark and then like super blonde on top. So I am gonna just go through and I'm going to weave it out here. We don't need to be super concerned. Like I said, there can be some depth, and actually having that depth in there does allow us to have that contrast, so it is gonna make the lightness even that much better. So we're going in with a traditional like highlight weave. And what I'm gonna do is we are gonna go in with our blending agent right here, right at the root. And this is gonna be super helpful, especially for clients that have like cowlicks in their bangs or their bangs aren't sticking down. This is definitely gonna make it a lot easier for you. So we're gonna go in with our lightener and just kind of blend it up in here. I am keeping it off the root for sure because that isn't something she doesn't want to go all the way to the root. And this isn't a money piece. This is slightly different from like a traditional money piece section. And that's why I know sometimes it can feel a little bit more complicated doing bangs of like, how do we actually do this? So we definitely want to keep it off of that root. Of course, you could go all the way to the root, but that's going to look more of like a traditional highlight kind of look. Most clients probably don't want that. They still want it to just be more of the ends tipped out. So we're going to blend that up in there. I'm going to fold this foil in half and cap it off here. And one thing I like to do for my clients while they are sitting here with all of these foils in is just kind of remove the bangs off their forehead so it's not sticking in their eyes. So just something to make it a little bit easier for them. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 sections like this. So we're going to take this next section and do the exact same thing. Still leaving some dimension in there, but really focusing on those ends. Now, one thing you will notice is I'm not teasing these sections. And you might think, well, why are you not teasing this? You tease everything else. And the reason why is these pieces are just too short that if you start to tease them, especially with her hair texture, it's going to be really rough for you to get in there and keep your sections clean. So that's why using something like the blending agent like I do, it makes it so much easier. Not only are we keeping that hair in a controlled manner in these foils, but it also allows me to blend up into the hair without having to really worry about teasing it. Teasing really is something that just helps with the blend, but at some point, sometimes it's not necessary. So I did want to mention that sometimes you're wondering maybe why doesn't she tease this section? It's just too short of hair and it's going to be a little funky. Another thing I wanted to mention is this is actually a really similar technique to what I've done for highlighting pixie hair. So if you guys want to check out that YouTube video, I'll link it in the description box below. But I basically did an entire head of hair that was this long on pixie. And so not only did we do highlighted pieces, but we also did some balayage pieces as well. Now, one thing I did want to do and wanted to mention is I do have a clean brush here. It could be any kind of brush, depends on like what your style of brush is, but I just happen to have this one on my station. There's one section right here that got a little heavy with the lightener, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and kind of erase it, just so we don't have a big chunk right there. So just wanted to mention that. Go back in, make sure that we're really saturated here because she does have thick bangs. We don't want there to be chunky spottiness in her bangs. That would be really bad. So yeah, we're just gonna go back through here and fold up this foil, and then we're gonna get to the sides. All right, so now once we've done her side swept bangs, we wanna make sure that we're connecting it into the side. And we also wanna make sure that when she wears her hair back, we have some lightness in here, because I think one of my biggest pet peeves is when clients have this beautiful balayage and then this for some reason doesn't get done and it's all dark in here. No client wants that. That's going to be weird. So what we want to make sure that we're doing is connecting it into this side. So I've taken just kind of a almost like a highlight piece here, right? And there's even a little bit of her bang that I'm going to be able to grab in here just to kind of connect it. And you guys can even see she even has some of this lightness in there from the sun. So that's going to work in our favor. So I'm gonna go through, and again, this first one, I'm kind of taking more of a thinner section, so I don't need to tease it, just like I didn't tease the bang area as well. So we go in with our blending agent right in here, and we're just gonna tackle this little piece. Kind of feather it up into this piece, which is in her bangs. And I definitely am thinking about this too when I'm placing, even just feathering up the lightener in here. I'm thinking about how is this going to lay back as she wears her hair back. This piece is like right around her ear. You know, how is that going to lay? So it's definitely something that, you know, as we're talking with our clients and we're painting and we're multitasking, I am still designing this color placement in my head of how it's going to lay for her. So just wanted to mention that as a hairstylist and as a colorist, we literally are doing so many different things at once. And the more you do it, the better you'll become at just understanding the placement and like where things are laying and designing that piece for your client, because this is truly customized, especially when it comes around the hairline. So I'm gonna continue on. I'm gonna do actually one more piece just like that. So another diagonal back section here. And again, kind of connecting into that bang section here. Make sure that my sections are nice and clean as they can be. I'm gonna weave this out. And again, here's another piece from her kind of bang area. And again, we're gonna cut her hair after this too. So we might even blend that in just a little bit more after we cut it. And one thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna leave this piece, this little low light piece down here. I'm gonna leave that out because I'm gonna tip that out in a second. So this piece has a little bit more hair and length to it. So I'm gonna tease it just a little bit because we can. I'm actually not even going to put it at the root. We're just gonna go straight from down here. You could use your board at this point. For me, it's kind of like an awkward angle, so I'm not gonna use the board. Again, what works for you, you can do. Foil right on top. And basically what I'm gonna do for the rest of this section is we're gonna just do some diagonal backs all the way up until we get up into this corner. Now, this is where she wears her hair, mostly on this side. So something to take into consideration, I always like to start, personally for me, with the side that has more hair, and then we get to the side that has less hair just for processing. It just makes it a little bit easier. It's kind of not a great idea to leave the side with the most amount of hair last because it's gonna take longer to process. So just a little tip that I like to do, and plus when you get to this side, you're like, oh, I'm almost done, versus if you wait till this side, then you're like, I've got a huge section. So I'm gonna continue on just doing some diagonal backs. Now, one of the things that we do want to focus on here is I don't really need to get a ton of lightness down in this area. That's gonna be more of our dimension again. So now that we've done the hairline, that was the most important part. And so as we do this diagonal back section, I'm actually gonna leave some depth down here. So I'm actually gonna take this little guy, we're gonna leave him out, and I'm gonna do this section and just tip it out. But I don't wanna necessarily do a ton of foilayage in here because this is where I really wanna focus, is more on the top of her head. So I'm gonna do some foilayage pieces up in here. I'm gonna continue doing some diagonal backs, and I'll show you guys where we get to. All right, so now we're back to this little tiny side, and like I said, I'm gonna do the exact same thing as what we did on the other side. She doesn't have any bangs that really connect over here. We might kind of add in some face framing pieces. So I, again, am thinking through as I'm putting my placement in that this little piece might be part of her bangs as just on this side. So I wanna make sure that I am bringing lightness up into there as well. So I'm gonna do her little face framing piece, and we're just gonna keep doing some diagonal backs just in the exact same way that we did on the other side. All right, so we just finished putting in all the foils, and just to give you guys a quick recap, we did diagonal back and then straight across for the sectioning, and inside each foil, basically every other foil, I would do a tip out of the ends, so more deep ends, and then a closer foilayage piece to the root that was a little bit thinner. So we're getting a lot of variance in there, and we're definitely creating a lot of dimension while still keeping her ends pretty light. So we did all of that throughout the back, and then through the sides, we did her face framing pieces. Of course, we did her bangs, and then we did all diagonal backs working up into this point. So real quick, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to open up her foil just to kind of see where we're at. We're getting some really good lightness in there. I'll kind of move away the lightener so you guys can see. And just as a reminder, this was 25 volume with Olaplex, and then when we moved around to the front, I did bump it up to 30 volume, but this has probably been on for about 40 minutes now, and you can see we're getting some great light pieces. She still has a little bit of ways to go because we still have some warmth in there, and I want it to get a little bit lighter, but I'm honestly really happy with how this is looking. And we're gonna check some of her bottom foils. I think those are probably ready to go. We still have some in here that have some more processing time, but I'm gonna rinse those out, and then we'll just let her process. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up her toner, and I'm actually really excited because her hair lifted really beautifully, and that's kind of to be expected because she has virgin hair, but sometimes you just never know how it's gonna go. So I'm gonna be mixing up Shades EQ 10GI and 9P, and I'm also gonna add in a little bit of clear because we do have that level 9, and sometimes, you know, Shades EQ can be a little bit darker than what we want. I really want those ends to pop, so I don't want to do too dark. Sometimes that level 9 might pull a little bit deeper than what I'm wanting, so I'm just gonna throw in a splash of clear, but I'm really excited to mix up this toner because this is one of my favorite formulas. I love mixing the Gold Iridescence 10GI and 9P Pearl because I love the warmth from the 10GI, but then also the coolness from the 9P. Even though you feel it might counteract each other, a warmth and a cool, when you mix them together, it actually creates this really beautiful tone. So I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. All right, so we are going to apply her toner, and I always like to start in the bottom quadrant because if it processes too long, first off, it's in the bottom, but secondly, usually the hair is a little bit warmer here. So we are going to start kind of in this bottom section and then work our way up to the front. And personally for me, I like to use a comb to really get all the product through. And you also will notice that obviously we teased her hair, but we combed it out before we ever go in to apply the toner. So if you're having trouble like applying the toner or hair getting tangled, comb it out before you even go into it. That will save you so much trouble, and it'll make sure that you have a much more even application because again, if there's a bunch of tangles and spots in it, it's gonna be really hard to get it in there, and that's just gonna be a poor application and it's honestly just being lazy. So make sure that you're combing out the hair before you do that. I like to use the wet brush to do that. And then once I've applied the toner, I'll go through with this comb, which is the Wow comb. Also have this linked in the description in my Amazon favorites, so you guys can check that out. This is a tool that I use all the time for root shadows, for just applying toners. It is such an amazing tool. So check that out. And it will make your life a lot easier when you're applying things like toners. So as you can see, we are moving up the head section by section. You know, I'm taking about inch-wide sections here. Again, when we're applying things like toners, we wanna make sure that we're not having any hollow spots or missing anything. So again, take your time. This is something that is really crucial to making sure that you're getting a very even application. So this is something that I like to do, just kind of work up the head and then comb it through each section by section, and it makes that big of a difference. Okay, so I'm gonna be ready to rinse her. We've had the toner on for about 20 minutes now, and the only other thing that I decided to do is in her bang section, because it is such a heavy fringe, I did decide to shadow it just a slight bit. So I came in here and I did a 7N just to kind of break up that, not line of demarcation, because it wasn't a line of demarcation, but just to soften from where it came from her natural color into these light ends. So I just kind of painted it in right in there. It's not even really a shadow root because a shadow root would be from the root, but yeah, just kind of barely to blur that out, and you can just see how beautiful that transition is going to be. And another question that I get asked a lot, and I know the lighting is a little funky here, is how do you know when the toner is ready to rinse out? So I just want to show you how it's processed. At this point, you can see we still have a lot of lightness in there, but it is processed, right? You can definitely see those tones in there, the coolness of the 9P, but also some warmth still in there with the 10GI. And so I really like to let the toners process the full processing time. Not only is this gonna keep it as long as possible for the client, but you're really gonna get that actual tone versus just letting it kind of stain the hair. So like I said, this has been about 15 minutes, so we're gonna rinse it out and we're gonna shampoo her and then head back over the chair. So before we style her hair and curl it out, I did want to show you guys what it looks like straight. So you guys can see there's so much dimension in her hair, and the coolest thing about this technique is we didn't have to do a root shadow at all, but you can still see a lot of that depth in there, and that's what makes these pops of blonde so much brighter, is because we still have that depth. But I just love that we didn't have to do a root shadow. This is gonna grow out so nicely for her, and I really love how it turned out. So let's style it, and then we'll show you the whole thing after. All right, and here is our final result. You guys, I love how this turned out. It's so beautiful. We still have a lot of those golden tones in there, super stunning, but we have these beautiful bright blonde ends. And I think one of the things that I love the most is we still have a ton of dimension, so she's not gonna worry about it feeling like dark to blonde or like an ombre, but we have a lot of those bright ends, which she was really wanting and looking for. So this was a fun transformation. And I think one of the best things about this technique is you don't have to worry about doing a root shadow on the root area. It is perfectly blended, and that not only saves you time, product, but it's going to be lower maintenance for your client. So yeah, I'm stoked on how this turned out, and let's wrap up. Thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. I hope that you enjoyed this transformation as much as I did. It was so fun to give her this beautiful blonde balayage hair and do something a little bit different. To be honest, it has been a while since I have balayaged bangs or done any kind of things with bangs. So this was super fun. It was really fun to just get in her hair and to lighten her out and to see the look on her face at the end. So that is always the best thing about being a stylist, when your clients are super happy. Well, I hope that this video gave you a brand new technique to add to your arsenal of skills that you have as a stylist. Now, I will mention that this entire transformation took us about 6 hours. So I often get the question of how long do these transformations take, or maybe you've been feeling like you take forever or something like this isn't achievable in a couple hours. And to be honest, it isn't achievable in a couple hours. So this is a conversation that you can have with your clients, that if they want a transformation like this, it is going to require time and you should be charging accordingly. So I just always like to be transparent as much as possible of how long these transformations take. But to be honest, to go from where we were to where we ended up in only 6 hours, I have to say I'm pretty proud of that. So as always, I hope that this video was helpful for you. I would love to know if you watch this YouTube video, come send me a DM over on Instagram. Come say hi, let me know what you think. And if you recreate this look yourself, send me DMs, send me some photos, because I love seeing the transformations that you are doing too. All right, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.